In my next video, I'm going to talk about the first shed that we built in the backyard. It's an 8x12 work shed with a very sloped roof. As you can see on top there, we have a solar vent to pull the warm air out of this shed. I do have two windows, one in the east and one in the west, to hopefully get a little bit of airflow, but it can get pretty warm in here. So when we come in, you can see this is completely powered by the sun. There is no battery or no storage, so the heavier that the sun is, the faster that fan runs. So as I've said in past videos, I have a 230 watt solar panel on the roof of this shed. That's the positive and negative coming in from that down the wall into this MPPT charge controller, very similar to the controller that I have in the she shed. The only difference, this controller is 20 amp rated, and it does have a backlight on it, so you can see relatively easily what's happening with the batteries and with the solar. So you can see there are 28 volts, 27 volts of power coming from the sun. That's been up and down all day because it's a little bit overcast, and then the sun does come out. But so all the readings there similar to the ones that we had in the she shed. The one thing I'll point out as well is the battery temperature, 26 degrees Celsius, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But off of the charge controller, the black negative and red positive coming down, straight down, that comes out to the battery bank here and goes to the batteries for the charging. And this MPPT, being a smart controller, will charge the batteries when needed, and if and when they become fully charged, then the MPPT will not send an overcharge to the batteries, which would damage them. So in my last video, same batteries that I have here as I do in the she shed. In my last video though, I didn't really explain much about these, so I'm going to explain how I've got them all connected, and there's a ton of videos on YouTube showing this, and honestly that's how I learned. So these are all 6-volt golf cart batteries, 6 volts, and they are rated at 225 amp hours. You can see on the third line there. So because these panels are 12 volt, we need to connect these in what is called a series connection to make two 6-volt batteries become one 12-volt. So when you connect batteries, or solar panels for that matter, in series, the voltage doubles, the amp hours remain the same. When you connect things in parallel, then the voltage remains the same, the amp hours are cumulative. So the way you do a series connection is you take the positive from one battery, connect it to the negative of the other battery, which is what this cable's doing. This now creates two batteries become one 12-volt battery with 225 amp hours. So I've done that with the first set of two, the second set of two, the third set of two. So in effect, I have three 12-volt batteries and 225 amp hours in each. To take this now a step further, to get more time or more power, more energy out of these batteries, we can then take the three sets of 12 and we can connect them in parallel, which is connecting the positive of one battery to the positive of a second battery, and even add positive of a third battery, and we can keep going and going and going as long as they're all 12 volt. And then on the other side, we do the same thing. So the negative to the negative to the negative. And what that does is it remains a 12 volt battery because we're not doubling the voltage anymore, but we're now adding the amp hours. So in this case, three 225 amp hour 12 volt batteries become 675 amp hours. So that's how I've got all this connected. It is looked at as one 12 volt battery, even though it's 6, and 675 amp hours when fully charged. So the connection that I was showing you here, or that I was talking about with the temperature gauge, that single negative connection wire coming off the left side there comes down onto, you can put this onto any battery. I've got it connected here just with a plastic clip. That is a temperature gauge. So that uses the negative connection on any battery, and that's how we're able to see on the MPPT controller what the temperature is of the batteries. Obviously you don't want those to get too high, and so I typically have this fan running. I just turned it off for this video, but I typically have that running on the batteries all the time, especially in the summer, and it does keep them relatively cool. So that's the whole connection of the batteries and the charge controller and the panel that's outside. So what we do off that now to get power is we take the positive connection. Again, remember this is looked at as one 12-volt battery. So we're going to take the positive connection over on this outermost battery and the negative connection on the closest battery, and we're going to send that off for all of our power needs and such. So if you look at this positive connection, this gray cable right here runs all the way across and runs up into a 100 amp breaker. So if we have any surges or any problems, that will trip and it won't cause any damage or any problems here in the shed. The negative side of that comes out and goes directly into the power inverter. So this is the MotoMaster, just a higher end version of the one that I have in the she shed. It's upside down, but as you can see, 1750 watts. The one in the she shed's only 750. That though takes the negative connection, and then that negative connection comes off of that and goes into our fuse panel, fuse box, very same one that I have in the she shed as well. And then that connection from the positive side comes off the fuse box and goes down into the breaker. So that's how everything kind of flows together. And again, you can see the fuse panel here. I'm not sure if I explained it in the last video. The screws that are on the bottom with all of the black cables connected, that's the negative side of this fuse box. The positive is up the right side and the left side, 3 each, and you can see the red connections coming in off of 4 of them. So, and then just individual fuses, depending on what it is that I'm running. So this one on the left with the blue fuse is the one a couple of videos ago. That's the one going out to the water pump for the rain barrels. And then the 3 that are on the right, one of them goes to a panel, which I'll show you in a second, and the other 2 just go off to LED lights, one of them being right above us here. So that light just basically comes down and connects into there. So this is all DC power. So everything that you're looking at as far as connections right here is basically taking power from the batteries and going directly to the fuse box through the breaker and using that power as it comes in from the sun, basically. There's a number of different things you can add. There's 12-volt refrigerators, there's all kinds of 12-volt appliances that you can run. And the nice part is when you run DC, you don't lose any of the power that gets generated. As I said in the last video, all of these gray cables that you're looking at here, all of these thicker cables, this is a 4-gauge wire. So the only loss is obviously the run from the batteries. You're going to run cables, but you're going to lose a little bit along the line. When you take DC power though and convert it to AC power, which is what we're used to in our houses, there is a loss in the conversion itself, and I'll show that in a couple minutes. So that's DC power, and as I said, the fan here, that whole panel that I have, same one that I have in the she shed, and the LED lighting. I'm just going to turn that off while we're in here because it's pretty bright in here, okay? So yeah, so basically this is all using DC power, and the transmission the conversion of power from DC to AC, we're going to lose a little bit in the conversion. So again, DC, this is now AC. So what happens with this? This takes the power from the batteries through the breaker, and it takes the power and converts it to regular household plugs, which we can use. As you can see there, I've got the 2 connections. The one yellow extension cord goes up and then up through the rafters here of the shed, goes over to where I have a TV and I've got a radio. I don't always use both at the same time, obviously. Right now I've got the radio connected, so I'll just turn that on.
Every ring. Everyone says that.
But not like
And
choose Earthmind or Artisan Created Diamonds.
so again, that is now taking DC power, converting it to AC power, and I'm able to listen to my radio as I want without problems. If I wanted to, I could plug the TV in. I have an antenna on the top of the shed here as well that I can watch TV with. It gets about 20 or 25 channels. I'll maybe do a video on that on its own as well, and that'll be another video one day. The other side, or the other connection that I have, this is 3 connections that run into here. I'm only using 2 right at the moment, but the other one comes over to this power bar that's here, and this is where I charge all of the batteries for all of the household tools that we use, or backyard tools, if you will. I have a few DeWalt drills, so there's 2 chargers that I run to charge the DeWalt drills. These 4 here, the top 2 and the one on the bottom left, is for the lawnmower that we have, which is Greenworks 40 volt. Just maybe turn that around here so you can see. Greenworks 40 volt. Oh, that's only got 3 battery or 3 lights on it, whereas that one's got 4, so we could probably charge that one right now. Matter of fact, I will. So again, we just throw that down here maybe, and that will now charge. The one that's on the right here at the bottom, that's a 56 volt battery for a weed whacker that we have. So each week we go out and cut the grass, we do the weed whacking as needed, and when we're done, we bring the batteries in here, let them cool down a little bit, and then we can use the solar to charge all the batteries and keep them up. So again, that's all coming off of that beige power bar that's right there and plugged in and connected. So that's how that all runs. So basically everything in here is being run off of solar, and one panel that's up above is doing everything, charging these batteries here and running a conversion here to AC power as needed. So that's the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you liked what you saw, please subscribe. Thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon.